Before we get started today, I just wanted to take a moment of silence for the 6 students that we have lost in the last 16 weeks.
16 months.
16 months. Okay, so just a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to our September 14th school board meeting. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. I know we just got notification that there is a correction. One of the email addresses is incorrect on the website. Thank you. The website is incorrect, so that will be a change. Are there any other changes? Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd like to move to approve the minutes with the amendment.
Thank you, Lance. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Scott. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ursula, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Minutes have been approved unanimously. Building update.
Recognitions.
Okay, I guess I have a old one. Recognition and reports. Kalispell Middle School, nobody's here, no students. Okay. Flathead, we have Hanaya Halverson. Did I say that right? Yes. Okay, great. Hello, Hanaya, and welcome.
Hi guys, my name is Hanaya Halverson, and I'm the senior class president at Flathead. So I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how this year is a little bit different now that we're somewhat back to normal. So this week we have Spirit Week, and we are doing a bunch of different dress up days for each day, and we have our football game and like our student section this year. So that's been super fun for a lot of the students and ends up helping with the involvement and getting kids involved in class and things. So we've had some volleyball student sections, and we had one football home game so far. We lost it, but it's okay because it's about the school spirit. And then also last Friday, we had a 9/11 tribute, kind of moment of silence, where all the students went out to our front patio area, and we did the Pledge of Allegiance and listened to our choir sing the national anthem. And it was really cool to see all the students coming together just to remember a day that a lot of us, well, most of the students weren't even alive for. But yeah, so that was cool, and we were also, I'd say maybe half the students were all wearing yellow that day too, and bring awareness to suicide prevention. So that was inspirational as well. So also on Monday we had Mountain Monday for Dress Up Day. So that was very cool, and it was a lot of students had a different interpretation of it, and when student council was deciding what the days were, we were like, oh, we're just going to do Mountain Monday. It's probably just going to be a bunch of skiers. And then a bunch of people showed up in hiking gear and hunting outfits and like animal hats, and it was really cool to see that too. So that's just one of our days that we've had so far, and yeah. And then on Fridays, we were also doing our parade down on Main Street with like a bunch of different close for like sports going on right now, and clubs and homecoming royalty, so that will definitely be, yeah. You guys are all welcome to come and watch. If you have time, I don't know. Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for volunteering, being involved in all this. We do appreciate it. I know all the behind the scenes. Yeah. I don't have any questions.
I have a question. How are freshmen adjusting to the start of the year?
Well, at our school, we have a program that we started, I think, in the last couple of years. It's called Brave Mentoring. And actually, I'm one of the Brave Mentors, but there's executives, and there's about like 30 of them, and there's about 130 Brave Mentors. And the execs train the mentors to train freshmen. So today, I actually got a group of 4 freshmen in this class with like, it was in our 3rd period health class, and so you get a group and you're with them all year long, and you're going to be teaching them every month like different lessons and how to act in school and be involved in a bunch of stuff. Like today we were talking about school spirit because week. So that's a new program that's been super duper cool, and I think a lot of freshmen so far seem pretty relaxed going into the school year. Did you have a question too?
Are you telling me this is a volunteer position?
No, I have no idea. Any other?
Trustee did an excellent job presenting. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Perfect. Here you go. Thank you, guys.
Is there anybody here from Glacier to give a report? Okay. Great. So can you give us your names first?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Allie Kernan. I'm a senior at Glacier this year, and I'm our student body secretary.
And my name is Jordan Reiner, and I am the senior class vice president. And we just wanted to show you guys like how great the start to the school year has been. So to start off, our mentor day this year, we had the biggest class of freshmen we've ever had, in about 400 kids. And there were not that many mentors that signed up from our junior and senior class, but it was one of the best mentor days we've ever had. We switched up a little, doing different activities with the freshmen in different rotations, and it worked super great. I think they adjusted really fast, and it was just all around a really great experience for, I think, both the mentors and all the freshmen.
Okay, and then another exciting thing that is happening again this year is we're having fans at our games and our like different contests, which is super exciting. So far we've had some football, volleyball games, and like we've had some good student crowds, and it's just been really fun for us. And so now we're going to talk about activities, and I'm going to pass out our school board activity pass.
Right, so far, this year, our golf team, both the boys and the girls, won in the Helena Invite. The boys and girls soccer both defeated Butte, 4-0 and 10-0 respectively. Football is 3-0, defeated, Big Sky, Belgrade, and CMR. And then, we've had really great student section turnout for our football games, especially
Thank you.
the student section in honor of Campbell Smith, where we all got to be here. Volleyball defeated Butte, and then Sam L., one of our seniors, won cross-country race, and then after that, he went on to play a soccer game on Friday.
Okay, and we also had some treats that were donated to our school. And so before school even started, our varsity volleyball team and some of our administrators were able to plant, I think there was about 20 trees around our campus. 9/11, ceremony on Friday morning, and we dedicated a tree to the, victims of 9/11. And then our homecoming week is next week, and so tomorrow, the mentors have a meeting, for Friday to teach all of the freshmen about, getting into the school spirit and dressing up for, all the homecoming days, and teaching them, like, the things to do in that school spirit actually. Cool. Okay, and we also have a bunch of fun dress-up days for next week, for our Spirit Week. There's a few of them that we haven't done before. We have, like, Regeneration Day, where the freshmen are going to dress as babies. The sophomores are college age, and the juniors are, like, middle age, and then the seniors are senior citizens. And we also have our color wars, which we do every year, but this year is a little bit different. So I think the freshmen are white, sophomores are green, and juniors are blue, and then our seniors are going to have, blue, green, and white tie-dye, which our student council is actually making. And then our lunchtime games, we have a bunch of games lined up, so, rotating days, it's gonna be, like a game, and then the next day could be trivia, and then game, trivia, and then game. So, our games are like, one of them's like, fruit by the foot contest, so kids sign up, and then we draw names, and then they stand behind, with their hands behind their backs, and like race to finish, like a fruit by the foot. We have a karaoke day, and we'll have the students like clap for who they think is gonna, like, who wins the best singing. And then, I think we're doing a hot dog eating contest. And, on Friday, since we're playing, whoever football's playing, we have the art department make a piñata, and then we smash the piñata at both lunches, as a metaphor for how we're gonna all that night. And we also have like tag pizza races, which is during fourth period, just right before lunch, and so 2 people will get called down, and then they have to like race to the office to get a free pizza for lunch. So that's exciting, pretty nerve-wracking too, because I don't know. Personally, I don't ever want to do that, but I think it's kind of embarrassing, but And we also will have our homecoming royalty, so they're going to be announced at lunch on Wednesday, I think, and then there's going to be voting to follow. And then the dance is Saturday from 9 to 11, a little bit shorter, like half an hour shorter than usual, but pretty awesome. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you, guys. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, thank you, ladies. It's always interesting to hear what everybody's doing during homecoming week especially. Before we get started on the building update, I am going to pass around some thank you cards that came to the school board members and to some of the teachers. So I just thought you should all see these. There's a bunch of them inside also. And I have not read them all yet, so Gwen, if you could collect them there at that end of the table, I'd appreciate that, so. Okay, building update. Trig?
Do I have to be mic'd, is that?
Yeah, so
I
people
think
in the
for the
audience,
recording.
online.
Does it matter,
Thank you for having me. Again, and I'm gonna turn this over to a couple of great staff here in a minute. But I don't need to say this stuff again. Thank you for your guys' time and efforts and hassles and everything that you guys have to go through being, school board members. We sure do appreciate it. We are off to a really good start. At the middle school, we're really big. I looked at our numbers are kind of fluctuating every day, but I want to say we're 40 or 50 higher than we were last year. It just seems like there's more kids kind of everywhere, as we kind of go through our day, which is a good thing, and we're handling it, but we do have a lot of bodies in there right now. 6th grade day was a success, just having those guys in here. I only heard of 2 reports of tears, confirm if they were actual tears or maybe just a false report of tears. But anyway, otherwise, it was a great day to get us started. Then we have the 7th and 8th grade come in on Thursday and Friday, and things roll along. So, actually, a really good start for us. Do you guys have any questions for me about the building?
Scoreboard, did you ever get the scoreboard? What happened?
Yes, the scoreboard is up. Yes, it is, Jack, the scoreboard's up. We're not gonna let soccer use it, though. No, it's up, it looks great, it's not going anywhere now.
When are you gonna get the ice rink up out there?
Yeah, soon, the weather gets cold. So yeah, it's good, yeah, we're good, we got all that done, so, great. So, our building presentation tonight, I really wanted to talk about, we've got 2 programs that we're really getting going at the middle school this year, that we were able to do kind of with Callie's help and with Sarah Cole's help, and that's our Math 180 program. For years, we've struggled with, what do we do with math, what do we do for kids that are struggling with math? And we've tried a ton of things, that Lynn could attest to, and it's a lot of times, you take these kids out, it's what do we do with them? How do we help them? How do we serve them? How do we get them, to achieve higher? And it's just always, it's hard. And so this year, we've developed our Math 180 program, and so I'm going to introduce Vicki Buck, whom, we stole, and Bill will tell you this, over at Russell, we stole her from Russell, and he's still mad about it. But we stole her, and she's taken over our Math 180 program, and I just wanted her to talk a little bit about what we're doing with that program.
Thanks everyone for being here tonight. It's great to be back, so thank you for your service though. KMS, when they called and told me about this program, I was rather excited about it because I originally started in education, teaching middle school mathematics. And so it brought me back home to middle school again, and it's been a really fun environment. And so with Math 180, it's really neat that we're able to do this at the middle school because it is a blended learning model between facilitated instruction and online software to help students get to where they need to be. And ultimately, that goal is to have them algebra ready by the time that they are freshmen entering our high school. So it's really neat to see what we've done so far. The first couple of weeks, we talked about their mindset and looking at how with the right mindset and their beliefs that they can achieve their math goals, be successful in math. We've developed math pathways to look at current and historical data, so we make sure that we're placing the right students in this program. We completed our baseline scan, so we know where in the program to place the students, because they all progress at different pathways. And then we completed our fall English assessment, and the para that was hired, Royanna and myself, was able to go up to Glacier High School today and observe Math 180 in action. They've had it at Glacier High School for several years now. And that was really neat to see that live in action. So I'm really looking forward to helping the middle schoolers achieve their mathematics standards. And so far, something that Brad Holloway said this morning when we were chatting about math, and I just love this because I think it sums up Math 180. He said that it's confidence through content. And really that's what we're looking for with some of these students. And so I just feel really fortunate and blessed to be part of KMS this year, and I'm really looking forward to serving our students in this role. I think it's a great. Any Math 180 questions for me? Yes, go ahead, Will.
So this is a program where you pull kids out of the normal math class and put them through a different this program is like separate and different.
Yes, so instead of being in a traditional math classroom or a collab classroom, they are in this classroom instead. It's small, there's only 15 students maximum per period, and then they have 2 instructors, myself and the correct. And so with this software, students are able to fast track through it, so that way if they're ready for pre-algebra in 8th grade, then they will be able to exit Math 180 and enter pre-algebra depending upon individual success.
But you could see a case where after catching up, kids could go back to their own.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
That was my question too.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Vicki. She's going to birthday dinner with her husband here, so. And we talked a little bit about that, because initially we're thinking, well, we keep them in math and put them in Math 180. Well, the kids who don't like math or have struggled with math, it's like, well, now I've got 2 maths instead of 1. And so we made a decision, let's just put those kids in math 180, pull them out of the other class, so that is their math class. Yeah, so we're excited to see what happens this year. Okay, and then, I've got Heidi Burkhalter here. We were able to get a full-time Aspire program at the middle school. And we've kind of been, asking for this for a long time. And the need, we all know about the need, but just to make it happen, it's just kind of been a work in progress. And so we were really lucky. We hired Heidi Burkhalter away from Smith Valley, and she's been in our building a couple of years. And it's like, and then it came, okay, we've got a chance to get this Aspire program off the ground. Who would be the best person to do that? And we said she would be, and she has taken the reins and taken over, and I'd like to have her just talk a little bit about our Aspire program. And Deb Hagley, come on, too.
Nothing like being an afterthought, Ray.
Deb Hagley, one of our, and actually, so we've got Heidi Burkhalter, Deb Hagley, Sarah Bigelow, and then Amanda Johnson, all in our working in some shape or form in our Aspire program.
Thank you. So he always says that I would be the best fit. I'm just thinking I was probably the only one that was willing to do this. I'm sure you guys have heard about Aspire and how it's at Linderman and Rankin. And so I was super excited about it last year when he approached me. It did take me a couple of days to really think it through. But now we're off to a really great year. So Aspire, I'm sure Sarah has filled you guys in on really what it is. So being a special education teacher is a really great way to support kids with a variety of disabilities. Right now we have about 10 kids in our program, and they range from, we've got some autism, some cognitive delays, and then the biggest one is emotional disturbance. And they could have all of those diagnoses or just one. And so we're really trying to develop this program and give these kids the best support and help teach them how to handle social emotional challenges that we have. We have kids going out into the general classroom with para support. Like Chris said, we have a paraprofessional with us. I always like to say I have 2 behavior specialists, but I have one because I get Deb in the morning time and then Sarah Bigelow in the afternoon. And so it's been really exciting to watch in this short period of time, being able to support kids and helping them self-regulate. And it's a challenge for kids because even for adults, we challenge, it's hard to self-regulate sometimes. So I'm really excited about what this program has. And so I'm the academic portion of it. I work with the teachers in the middle school. I have to say it's been great to be at the middle school, and we use Google Classroom across the board. And so I've been able to link up with all of our kids going through the gen ed classes into Google Classroom so that I can kind of monitor how their progress is going, and then they come back to us and they can get some more individual support. And then I have kids who haven't quite made it to the general classroom, so then that's where I come in and teaching the academics. And I'm going to turn it over to Deb, and she's going to tell you a little bit about do I really need this?
So Sarah called me last year and said, do you want to be part of the A team over at KMS? And I said, you betcha I do. So I was super excited to go join everyone at KMS. So our role, Sarah and I share a position, really focused on social emotional learning. So what does that mean? And while I was driving over, I'm thinking, how do I explain something that's so complex, that has so many parts to it, and make it really, really simple? Well, we're just trying to help people learn skills. So whether you want to say Stuart Avalon, Ross Green, Bruce Perry, whatever you want to call, we're helping kids identify what are their lagging skills, how are we going to teach those skills. It's not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. So we're taking all those philosophies, bringing them into a really contained classroom where we can really support kids there. We do a lot of modeling. So for the 3 of us, because it's 2 of us as well as the para in the classroom, supporting kids in there, out in their general ed, but we do a lot of modeling of how adults interact with each other. We do a lot of modeling of how to stay regulated when those around you are losing their business. doing a lot of modeling, we're focusing a lot on language and vocabulary, how to build that emotional vocabulary and how to actually put it into practice. So I work at the airport. If you want to see dysregulated adults, you cancel a flight or you lose your luggage. So I bring a lot of practical, and I will use those as examples for kids. You want to hear about dysregulated adults? Let me tell you what happens outside of the airport. And so we're building language of what was this person doing well, what got them into trouble, how do you suggest this person could have handled it? They always tell me I did a great job. But, how does the adult handle the situation? So having real practical to say, you know what, adults lose their business too. And so you're building these skills now, so we're learning that language. And then we offer a variety of social emotional curriculum. So if anyone were gonna say, what is your favorite curriculum? All of them. So I like to take evidence-based curriculum, find what practical skills we need to work on right then, and use that curriculum. So today we focused on MINDA. If you're not familiar what that is, it's really starting about what's happening in your brain, what's the role of the amygdala, and why you flip your lid, and what can you do to calm yourself, and about how it's physiological that happens in your body so that you can recognize those things. Of course, they've learned a lot of this through elementary school, but we're just taking it up another notch. I could talk all night. Trig said, how long-winded are you? And I said, I'm somewhere in between Brent and Trig, so I think I did it. Oh, any questions?
Thank you.
And thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Yeah, so, and I would just say, I've always said the strength of the middle school is our staff. We've got an unbelievable staff. We've got that teaming model. We can really kind of corner in kids and take care of them, and it's tough for kids to fall through cracks. It's just great having Heidi and Deb and Sarah and Royanna and then Vicki, just people just taking over these programs. That's all we wanted to share with you tonight. Scott, I was trying to keep it short for you.
Yeah, that's okay.
But any other questions or anything on middle school? Yep.
So you thought your calling was to play basketball. I thought it was to play hockey. I thought you were a good, I thought you were a good hockey player.
I had to go to basketball.
That's because they didn't have hockey there. Everybody know that he plays hockey?
Yeah.
The only thing I never saw was somebody skate between his legs.
It was devastating when I got cut in ninth grade.
Well, you made up for it as an adult.
I don't know, those big hands, you'd make a great pianist too.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Oh, yeah.
Chris. Oh.
I do have a question. So last year, during the school visit, one of the things we noticed was that traffic patterns have been changed in order to reduce. Are you still doing that this year?
So we had two different schedules going on, last year to try to keep fewer kids in the hallways.
Right.
And this year, I think it kind of goes to all the points Micah brought up with. It was really a hassle. We were learning out on a lot of instruction time. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Trig. Before we move on to the next item of business, I just wanted to double check, we're coming into some action items, and I wanted to check to see if there was any members of the public. Just raise your hand if you plan to make a comment. Okay, would you just signal me when you want to make your comment during the appropriate time?
Actually, it's just general public.
Yeah, on the action items only.
I'm here just for a public comment. I really just wanted to ask you guys one question.
At the end?
At the very end, yeah.
Okay.
Can we just bump that up and I'll get out of here?
we have to go in order, sorry, but
Unless you can make it part of it.
it's true. Yeah, we'll get there though. Okay, personnel action items, Tracy?
Nobody got that. You probably have to turn it on. Thank you.
This is your basic one that you guys see, meeting, it's just hires, resignations.
It looked to me like there were a fair number.
Microphone.
It looked to me like there were a fair number of resignations, and is that normally in your experience, or do you think there's some reason for it, or is that just the way it works sometimes?
There's nothing abnormal going on, I think it's just the way it works. We have a couple of last minute resignations in some of the administrative. But I think that they were just ready to go, and there might have been a change in practice or a software system rather than learning a new system. Nothing.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Scotty?
No,
Scott.
make a motion, please.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Kim. I saw Kim first. It's been moved and seconded, that we approve the personnel action items. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ursula, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. It has been approved unanimously. Next item is the job classification proposal. Tracy?
Yeah, and this has been a long time coming. We've been working on this project for quite some time. The first thing I want to do is just, she is our classified union president, and this project is going to cooperate with the classified union. So the classified union has had, I'm trying to figure out how far back to go and give you some history. The past few years, if you've been a board member for some time, and we have come forward with market adjustments for our classified union. And so we're always trying to look to see where they are in the market and make sure that we're. And a couple of years ago, I think, or 3 years ago, was it already? 3 years ago, we did a little bit of a market adjustment and our administrative assistant, and we used the data from the local area. And for example, when we looked at similar jobs at Evergreen for our para positions, they were paid about $2 higher. So we needed to make a change. As a result of our last negotiation and kind of looking at the matrix and looking at the salaries, we made a determination that we really need to look at how we put those positions in the. So when you look at the classified matrix, you'll see that there's, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And how those positions are normally placed into those buckets based on life skills and abilities, level of complexity, and your scope of work. It's been a long time since we've evaluated how that matrix was put together and how those positions. So we need to take that time during this negotiation year to make sure that that's still accurate. A lot of our positions have, including our paras, our work in terms of support the teacher. So this is a good time for us to
you're not doing this internally is because it's not an easy process to go through. So what you do is you look at every single position in the classified union, and you test them against each other, and you make a determination of what positions are similar, and you put them in the same bucket. From an internal standpoint, my opinion might be different than Jack's, might be different than Gwen's, might be different than Megan's. Internal perspective, it's very difficult to have that objectivity. Whereas if you bring in an outside consultant, they will be able to make an objective recommendation based on just the position, as opposed to internal pressure. So we have worked, and actually MFPE is the one that identified this individual. I know her from Missoula. Her name is Kathy Kriego. She brings a lot of years of experience to this role, and she also has a lot of experience. So she can do her jobs and understand them a little bit more than we could just. And so we are asking you tonight to go ahead and move forward with entering into a contract with Kathy Kriego to evaluate our position. So complete that process, and then that will be part of our negotiations as we move forward with. Questions?
Tracy, when are the next negotiations?
They will be starting probably this spring, February, March, April.
So, who's the main driver behind this evaluation? Would it be the district?
It's actually both. And that is something I should clarify as well. Each party is paying half of the cost of this. So it's important for the district. I'll get to you in a second.
I'll follow up with
Okay,
your comment.
I didn't mean it that way.
I know.
That's why you don't give me a mic. It's important for the district in order for us to make sure that we're paying our people properly and that we have the right comparables and that we have the right people in the bucket. It's important for the union as well to make sure that their employees are correctly valued within the matrix.
So paying for it is 50/50. And in the last 3 or 4 years, it's been 50/50 in terms of this is something we.
So Will, this doesn't have anything to do with the wages that are paid. It's just making sure we have everybody grouped together, because it's probably been, we don't know when the grouping of 6 categories was put together. It could have been 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
And things have changed, so there are many positions that are probably not appropriately grouped. So there's still a salary matrix for each group, and that's going to be independently evaluated afterwards. First, to make sure that everybody's in the right group.
I pretty much understand it, but I was just kind of wondering if I ever was,
Combined,
why do we do
yeah.
this?
It was a joint, yeah, it was joint. Recognizing that there's just misplacement there, and that's not fair.
And we did have a lengthy discussion at the Personnel Committee, Will, and where we talked about some of those things too, so.
So this comes out of personnel.
This is not completely germane and more curious for information I'd like at some point, but, do you happen to have a feel for what percentage of our, classified staff is in the highest bucket, is already maxed out on salaries, or at some point, I'd, love to hear about that.
I think I need to look at some data, Gwen, unless you've got it off the top of your head. I don't think, it's as high as a percentage of teachers. But I'd say like maybe 1 point.
Thank you.
We have a wide range of different, job descriptions and also job skill grouping. And we're a big union as far as, from clerical to professional service.
Sue, I'd like to make a motion to approve this job classification evaluation for classified unions, not to exceed.
Thank you, Lance. Is there a second? Diane?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Ursula, you're opposed to it?
No,
Or was
I have
there-
a lag. I was trying to say aye
Okay,
to,
that's what I
with everybody
thought.
else. I'll just wait my turn like we have.
Just thought I'd clarify that. Okay, so, it has been moved and seconded and approved unanimously. Next up is special education life skills para. Sarah.
Hey, everybody. You guys are all doing well. This request was vetted through the personnel. And two. Over in terms of numbers. A little backstory, we had a special ed board meeting. Really excited about the at the time, we had anticipated increase in our life skills. We had planned for that. The third street life skills teacher, I had moved to glacier period of life. And first day of school comes, and we talk about seeing the whites of kids' eyes. And this grid, we kind of broke it down. In total, we have 26 positions. These are kids with moderate to disabilities. I just list different diagnoses. Typically, who need total care in terms of food. They have pretty serious behaviors that we're trying. On average, a norm for us is to have 8 special ed teachers, anywhere from 3 to 4. And you can see by these numbers last year in terms of numbers went up by 26. Like I brought up this point, if we were starting fresh with no life skills program, that's a number of life skills levels need. And so if you look specifically at the elementary, 7, and I've spent time in both. The need is so great that I've actually spent time in I asked Michelle and Brent to join, just specific questions to building needs. The other two, I really could see Kalispell Middle. And then potentially. I would like to take. Higher.
Sarah, how does this happen? I mean, I assume all these kids need such high levels of care, that how do they end up on our doorstep on the first day of school with no forewarning?
That's so interesting. And so we knew that Flathead and elementary were gonna have an increase, and we actually did FT at Flathead, so we 5 special ed life skills. And at Edgerton, you guys actually approved the third life skills teacher. We were prepared to some degree. We got additional districts whose IEPs when we originally met with them did. We had and register week before school. I was getting phone calls from other needs. I think those were the kids. One of these 26 in the book. I have a student, I just from Colorado, come over here. You have a student in the first grade, I think he's in the wrong spot. I think he's supposed to be in a life skills program. They bopped around Montana districts to Colorado and back here. Turn out this poor little guy, you know, only parent knew how to advocate for the level of need. And so, we went out and Friday, and we scheduled a transition. And I'm paying for this out of the other $3, which will get 2 years, and then these are positions that were out of the tuition fund. Every year, not even every, at least 4 times a year, at least quarterly, I'm looking at caseloads, and I'm shifting special repair FTE to make it work without really only come to you, anything that out there that, you know, creative and things.
Just Sarah showing the numbers alone, and sometimes it's hard with life skills because you have 10 kids in one class and 10 kids in another. The disabilities of those 10 kids in each elementary level, I think I have one family that moved here from out of state, 3 life skills kids. So right off the bat, you have 3 and 1 at Edgerton. Weren't expecting that. They take them and we do the best we can. The whites of their eyes and we
It's rounding out to be about 80% of those extra dollars would be for paraeducators, and that's if we need to hire all 4, and then about 20% for some of the things that we discussed. Additional questions?
Go ahead, Will.
So I'm kind of interested in how you determine that you'll pull these other 2 positions. That sounds like it's just not like burnout of your staff or kids who aren't being, their needs aren't quite being met. Juggle them into other programs in order to balance.
So to answer the first part of your question, we take into account, I wish I had a good, anecdotally, we're losing parents left and right. Here, computers. And so I don't have a great way to measure that. I actually, for the first time ever, had a parent call me, Friday afternoon from Hedges. What I do, I get another pair. I'm afraid to take a day off. Yeah, and then as far as these are IEP dictates the level of support and supervision they need. So it's not just numbers, it's the level of support that.
Who writes those IEPs?
These are written by teams, including parents, service staff, and
Thanks.
My concern comes down to the financing. I understand going for it, I like the idea of getting two, maybe two later, but before we go for the second two, I'd like to see how this would cash flow over the next couple of years. I understand ESSER, I understand permissive levy, but at some point in time, the general fund could come into play, because we still have maintenance of effort that needs to be addressed, and I guess I'd still like to see how those percentages might play out, because at some point in time, if we don't have a good, or if the maintenance of effort doesn't, just use the phrase, sustain itself, we have to tap into the general fund. So I guess I'd like to get some kind of a better understanding of that sometime in the next few months, in order to feel comfortable with 4 as opposed to just 2.
more comfortable with. I'm okay with either option. I think the consensus of personnel was, there is so hard to have, it will get approved for 4 now. But I totally understand that position. Kevin and I are working on, we took care of a first numbers, we're gonna circle back. Tuition is included, so tuition fund dollars are considered included in maintenance of efforts. I don't anytime soon, other double A. First blush, out of the 3 double A's that I compared as currently proportionally spending the least amount of money on special ed. All funds, just to look at all funds, and then also the job. Again, Ben and I are working on this data, and we're
Thank you.
I actually got to go into Hedges last week, and while I was there, I did look at the life skills classes, and I was shocked at the level of need that a lot of these kids need. Some of them, it was a one-on-one kind of a scenario. So when we were talking, you know, to paras the other day at the meeting, I think those two, I'm leaning on 4, and I get where Jack's coming from. But I was amazed at what was going on with the life skills group. Literally, from some children needing individual para full time to help walk, to feed. And then some of the other kids in the class, they didn't need as much care, but need the care. Yeah, these numbers, there are a lot of students that need a lot of help.
And sometimes it's hard to really integrate, it doesn't make as much sense until you actually spend some time. I joked with our central office team, to pull up, I had a sensory toy that was full of, that was in someone's mouth, kind of struck in my face. I mean, there's lots of things that occur in these classrooms that I couldn't visualize unless you actually.
Any other questions from board members?
I just had a comment. To speak to Jack's point, I understand that this is an unfunded mandate. I mean, but we are legally required to take care of these students, and the level of care they need, as Heather mentioned, is surprising and extraordinary. But we need to provide safe conditions for our staff, and, you know, and the hiring of these particular paras, I think, is one of the more difficult hires. I mean, these are the kids, these are the teachers who may very likely get kicked or treated in ways that they're not anything against the kids are doing what they can, but, I think they're hard positions to fill. I think we do need to take care of these students, and, you know, I'm sorry that it's not, that the entire school system isn't, you know, a funded mandate, but it is what it is.
Rebecca, anything else? I know coming from a life skills background, that's where I started my teaching in the classroom. And I was one of those eyes wide open at the time because I learned a lot that year, and I appreciated all the help we had in the classroom. And, you know, I think it's important to have that flexibility, especially the difficulty in finding these paras that, you know, need some specialized training as well as patience. Any other questions?
I'd like to make, I move the Board of Trustees approve 4.81 special ed paraeducators at the.
Thank you, Diane. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Will. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ursula?
I'm so sorry, I couldn't hear, was the motion for, I couldn't hear
As written.
specifically the motion presented. Can they scroll up
Okay.
just a tiny?
It was as presented.
Would you mind scrolling up
It's
just a
to-
tiny bit so I can see how it's written?
To the board as parents, as requested.
Can, yeah, can you
Yes.
see that?
I vote
Okay.
yes for that. Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Ursula. It has been approved unanimously. Thank you, Sarah. I think you are. So, contracts.
So this is our MOU with Special Olympics. Second year, there's no, in all of the leadership, and so we're able to put it through. The beauty of this agreement is, one, that it just symbolizes our partnership. But two, it allows for us to. One example of how to use elementary team and the two elementary. So, no financial.
No questions? Anybody willing to make a motion?
I'd be willing to make that motion and, who best presented.
Thank you, Lance.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Scott. Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ursula?
Aye.
Thank you. It has been approved unanimously. Okay. Thank you. Okay, policy updates, first reading.
Yes, we're back to our favorite part of the agenda. Policy updates, I think there's only like 60 of them on the list. But these four that are coming before you tonight for the first time are important policies, and they really, in their titles, visitor and spectator conduct, conduct on school property, personal conduct, well, not credit card use, that one's not quite as, it's important, but it's not important in the sense that these policies really spell out what is a school building for the purposes of defining guns on school grounds. And so we talked about these at policy committee. We are very comfortable with moving them forward with a very narrow definition as provided by MTSBA on school grounds. School building, under one set of rules, could be defined as something with four walls and a roof over it, but we want to extend that definition of building that would be under the struggling to remember what the particular housing authority code is, but, it would basically be anything on school grounds, so playgrounds, Legend Stadium, a soccer field, anything that is owned, leased, rented, by the district, would be, very narrowly defined to exclude just school grounds, so that we're not talking just about within a building. So, Kelly, would you open up, visitor and spectator comments? Mhm. So there were some changes at the legislative level on where guns can be carried or not, what is permissive. And there is some litigation on this coming from Board of Public Ed relative to college campuses and who gets to decide. And so it's an interesting interpretation of the law and how that's being regulated. But for example, you can't wear a gun into a courthouse. You can't wear a gun into the police station. You can't, there are areas where they're specifically excluded. And in the definition of that, it was not clearly defined relative to schools and university campuses. And so the Montana School Boards Association put out, and you can scroll down a little bit. I'm sorry. Yes, it is. They put out two options for boards to consider. And as we talked about in personnel policy committee, we wanted to make sure that it was that narrow focus. Yeah, you can scroll down. So for the purposes of this policy, school property means within school buildings, in vehicles used for school purposes are owned or leased school land or grounds. District administrators are authorized to take appropriate action as circumstances warrant to enforce this section of the policy, including but not limited to requesting the assistance of law enforcement. So then it goes on to, and it gives a bunch of definitions. So what is defined as a firearm or a weapon? Pull down a little bit more. There is a caveat in here that the Board of Trustees shall annually review this policy. And so that's one that we'll just put on the calendar and bring it forward annually in case there's any updates to it or changes in litigation. But in option one, yeah, right here, where option one and option two are, for the purposes of this policy, school building means a combination of any materials, whether mobile, portable, or fixed, to form a structure and the related facilities for the use or occupancy by persons or property owned or leased by a school. So just an example would be, if we didn't narrowly define it and someone showed up to a football game with an AR-15 on their back, we would have, without the policy in place, they would be allowed to do that. Or a pistol on their hip or whatever it may be. By defining it narrowly, we can say you can't do that. And I think for the safety of our students, our staff, officials, fans, whatever it may be, I think this is an appropriate step.
First specifying for firearms, is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
So nobody can attend government on all school grounds, including Legends,
Yes, or
spectators. Okay.
anything that we would lease, rent, own. Yep, and if someone did, showed up, we'd just say, sorry, you can't have that. You can go put it in your vehicle, or you can't attend.
Okay, this also includes, like, other weapons, like bows and arrows or swords.
Nunchucks, throwing stars. Yes. Yeah, so there's a list of weapons down in here, poisons, chains. Yeah. So it's not a conclusive list, but it is, it sets the point.
Does not change on.
Oh, and Libby, if you ever go to Libby, they actually run chainsaws.
But they don't have the chain on the bar.
No, they don't.
They just have the bar without a chain.
Yeah.
That's attached to the chainsaw.
So any questions from the board on this? There's no action tonight. This is first reading, and I would encourage you to review it, look it over. But bringing it forward, I would suggest that we just stick with the options that more narrowly define school buildings, property.
So this is first reading. When do we decide which option? Will the policy committee bring a finalized version of us?
Well, when we reviewed it, I think last week, recommendation of the option.
So moving it forward into second reading and third reading, we'll put option 1 and not both options. We just wanted to make sure that we had both options in front of the whole board.
Any other questions?
Policy
Go ahead.
Policy 7400, credit card use. That one was a policy that we had, but we weren't, what was written in the policy previously wasn't reflecting what our actual practice was. And so Gwen rewrote just a sentence in there specifying that we keep a list of individuals that have a district credit card. They've completed the credit card use agreement.
Can I back up to what we were just talking about?
Absolutely.
Just, when I was reviewing it, was kind of struck by the very first part where it determines who this policy applies to.
Mm-hmm.
And it mentions that it excludes enrolled students and employees. Why is that? Is there a separate policy for these behaviors that are under or district
Yes.
employees?
Yeah. Yeah. So any policy that's a 3,000 series is student related, 5,000 is personnel or employee related, and then the 4,000 series are governing other individuals who may come to campus.
I just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Ready for the second reading?
Any questions on second reading?
Yes, regarding the policy 4332 that we just talked about, buildings, which also defines firearms and non-firearms, and policy 3311 that talks about other than firearms, tries to define those. I'd like to see some consistency between those two policies and the definitions of firearms, and have one, either have the definition the same or have one policy refer to the other policy.
Okay.
And just, so I think they both need to be maybe run together, but they have some parallel themes on firearms and non-firearm weapons, and get the word choices.
Okay. 3311.
Repeat the two policies.
4332 and 3211.
It's 30.
Well, 3211 on the first page says 3211, and on page 2 and 3 it says 3312.
So it's 3312, 33. Already have a 3311.
So it'd be 3312. Okay.
3312.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a little confusing there. I was looking in the upper right-hand corner.
Yep.
Okay. But if we could tie those two together and have them flow through together.
We can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
More work for the policy committee.
Any other questions on those up for second reading?
I didn't finish it.
Of course it will.
All right, and then we have third and final reading. These ones require action to adopt. Any questions on those? Okay.
I move to, oops,
This is an action item, right?
This is an action item, yes.
May I?
Yes, please.
Okay. No?
Yep.
Okay. What, please?
The ones that are on the second
Oh, yeah, the page that we were just on, I had a question about it.
one that summarized them all on the third.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's, 230, review transmission. Imagine that kind of relates to, like, you guys' last meeting. I don't know if anybody has a chance. I have. There's a couple different versions of that on the market. Those could be effective in classroom settings, you think? More like, you know, classrooms vary. That website that I do the proper one to, that one shows you all the research of it. Last time, did email everybody too?
I'll get you another one.
But everybody else got it. So please check it out, you know, like what the research shows, and this prevents the transmission of COVID, but the flu, you know, and common cold, it's something that's gonna help us get into the future. Very wise use of, that relates to the question I wanted to ask at the end.
You integrated it.
Good job working it into the agenda.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening now.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions, or is somebody comfortable making a motion?
I so move.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Second.
Thank you, Will. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the policy updates as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ursula?
Aye.
Been approved unanimously. Next on the agenda is the Safe Return to Schools and Continuity of Service Plan, which is an item we have to address at every board meeting. So get used to it.
Yes, and, you know, one of the link to, the plan is on the website, and, we need to do a couple of updates to it as we've, done some changes and had some discussions, and just noting the meetings, that we've had where it's been brought up. And, so I'm gonna take this as an opportunity just to give an update, on some things that are going on, as it relates to Kalispell Public Schools and our Safe Return to Schools. First thing I want to share and talk about is just the numbers. That seems to be the one that everybody's asking questions about. And certainly I've received some emails from parents wanting to know more information. And last year we were very transparent in reporting our numbers, and we will continue to do that. One of the challenges, don't have a COVID director, so you're relying on yours truly to hopefully get it all right. And another challenge that we faced so far this year is just the lag time between county, I'll start with testing, to getting to the county being able to process cases. And the third thing that's compounded this is we've moved our reporting system away from each individual school site keeping a separate spreadsheet that we would have to go into and cull that information from. Eric Miletich has done a great job of integrating it into PowerSchool. So now we have our staff trained on how to enter in positive cases, when it was first reported, when quarantines or isolations are over. And so we're starting to be able to just run a simple report that gets us that information. But I'm going to talk about positive school cases so far. We've had 9 school days, including today, and we have had 15 active student cases today, and we've had 31 overall for the district in 9 days. And we have 11 active staff cases, and we've had 12 overall. So seeing some pretty high numbers in staff. A lot of those will come out of isolation in the next couple of days. Some of the cases that we've had that we're reporting, we actually had parents call in and say, right before school started, my child tested positive for COVID. We're keeping them out on isolation for 2 weeks, and we want to just make the school aware of that. So we are seeing that. We're seeing in those numbers, we're seeing more at the middle school and elementary. Currently, Flathead High School has no active cases and no reported cases. So I think there's a couple of things going on that we've experienced as a district. One thing that we've experienced is a parent actually sending their child who tested positive to school with COVID. We've had parents that are, because of the availability of testing being a challenge, have taken or administered the home kits provided by pharmacies like Walgreens, and then will let the school know but won't let the county know. And so that puts us in a really difficult position, because now you, as mandatory reporters, right, for all things health and safety, whether it's child abuse or sex trafficking or illness, whatever it is, mandatory reporters, we have parents that are telling us this and then not wanting to share that information with the county. So then when it comes to quarantines and contact tracing, it makes it really difficult. So I know that there's a student who potentially exposed other students in class, and how do we address that from a school district perspective? Do we let parents know that there's a confirmed but not confirmed case of COVID, and we recommend that you isolate or quarantine? So we've had some challenges with that. Quarantine numbers, right now we have 31 active quarantines, and we've had 44 overall. And with that, some of the challenges that we've had to address when it comes back to that lag time. So student feels ill, take 2 or 3 days to get a test from the hospital or their healthcare provider, and then it's 2 more days or 3 days to get the test results back. So by the time we get the confirmed case to the county, whatever would have been a quarantine order has almost expired by that point. So we're just continuing to see more and more challenges than we did last year relative to this. And again, 9 school days, and we're already dealing with quite a few cases. I want to let Matt talk a little bit just about quarantines, isolations, the work that we've done with the health department and what we're doing as a school district.
Mike, before we go to Matt, are the rapid tests being utilized?
I'm going to get to that in just a moment.
All right.
Actually, that's one of the top of the list complications that we have right now is the lack of testing available in Pleasant Valley. And Micah has been leading a Valley-wide task force on, plans to get more testing available. And when that happens, we're hoping for a reprieve from some of the complications that we're dealing with now because testing isn't available. So what we're doing right now is when we receive a report from a parent from a confirmed case, whether it's a home test or if it's a county test or a Logan Health test, we're passing that information on to the county health department to make sure that they have that name of that student. And then we are not yet safe contact tracers this year, but we still have an obligation to assist the county and support them with providing information relative to seating assignments. And at the elementary level, that includes a classroom seating assignment, plus wherever kids are mixing on a regular basis, like carpet time. We have the same group of kids, and teachers are doing a good job of having them sit in the same spot. So you're identifying a couple different areas where kids have close contact. And then we are communicating with parents by classroom. And so if we have a confirmed case in a classroom, we're sharing with every parent in that classroom whether we think that their child will be identified as a close contact or we think their child will not be identified as a close contact. We've received mixed feedback from this, but mostly positive. I think I should have said at the beginning, I'm going to describe some things that are very general. I'm like painting with a mop right now, so give me some liberties here. But, that I think in general, parents recognize the higher transmission rate of the Delta variant and the reality that the majority of classes are unmasked. So when we consider contact tracing, we're considering it in the version of what contact tracing looked like last year with a wild variant, with the majority of students wearing masks. So that when the county is doing the contact tracing, it's safe to say that they're identifying a minimum number of students in comparison of what perhaps is going on across the country in different areas where they would identify more students. But regardless, we're sending a note to parents and saying, under these parameters, your child, based on our experience, would be considered a close contact or would be considered not a close contact. And then the county from there owns the whole thing. So we pass it over to the county, they have the list, and then we allow students back to our campus when they've been cleared by the county. There's lots of levels of detail here that could get a kid back in school. One is if they tested positive for COVID within 90 days, they're not quarantined. If they have a negative test after day 5, they can return on day 8. And the county determines when the last day of contact is, and then they mask for 5 days. But, all those variables we're not responsible for anymore because we're not designated contact tracers. So we've just left that to the county and say, you tell us when the kid can come back. So that's where we are in that process right now. The county is working through some of the nuances of, how do we process a home test to an actual confirmed case? And how can we get more testing available in the county? Because we have parents that want to get their kids in tested, and they'll be waiting for a day or two to get the student tested. And then after that, we're waiting another day or two to get results. And that's what Mike was referring to for that lag time. It's complicated. And the last thing I'll say is this tends to be more of an elementary school problem than a high school challenge. And that's because what I'm experiencing, and maybe what Callie's experiencing, I won't speak for her, is that the parents of high school students or middle school students that have concerns about sending their kids to school in an unmasked environment have been the folks that have had their children vaccinated. In the elementary school, the vaccination is not available for 11-year and younger students. So that same percentage of people in our community that are concerned have yet to have that option, and so they're the ones that, typically I hear from that are wondering, you know, what should I do if there's a positive case in the class? How can you help with more testing? Those types of questions.
Matt, you've mentioned that we're not deputized contact tracers this year. What are our building administrators experiencing, even though they aren't deputized?
In a nutshell, all of the same work without any authority. So, you know, the reality is there's just information needs passed. And so you need to gather up those student assignments, and those student assignments change. We try to keep them static for a certain amount of time, and then they change, so you have to keep the list. And then the student assignment isn't as easy as just saying, hey, here's the list, here's what it is. Sometimes it's a PowerSchool model that's on a computer grid. Other times it's like literally a note that was written on the board and we took a picture of, and there's no measurable distances. So the principals are the ones determining, okay, what is 6 feet in this graphic that we're looking at? And then from that graphic, they identify the student, the different areas of the seating assignment, and then they pull what we refer to as a Sql report, and it's a report from PowerSchool that we enter in the homeroom of the teacher, and then it's all of that directory information. And from that directory information, we find the students that would be identified as close contacts. We separate them from the kids that would not be close contacts. And then we send that list to the county to do with what they want. So at the elementary level, we know that at the end of it, in a timely manner, there is some level of protection because there is a quarantine happening administered by the county for those close contacts. Now at the middle school and high school level, we're not doing that. What we're doing is we're waiting for the county to send us a name of a kid, and when they send us a name of a kid that they want us to contact trace, then we start that process. So, for lack of better definitions, very much proactive and real time in the elementary school, and then reactive at the high school level based on the request of the county. And we're not getting the request from the county for the high school students. We've had, 0 confirmed cases at Flathead High, and I think we're at 5, maybe a little bit more at Glacier. And again, it's because I don't think generally that age group of students are getting tested when they're sick. One, and then two, the families that are concerned about symptoms probably have already had their kids vaccinated in that age bracket. It's a lot of work. It's a real heavy lift. It's probably consumed the majority of our time at the start of this school year to just get the process squared away. Frankly, it was so much simpler when we were allowed to be deputized contact tracers. And there was multiple steps that we didn't have to take, but due to some legislation last year, our hands are tied, the county's hands are tied, and so we're just trying to fulfill our obligations where we still are required to process this information. We're not absolved from any of those responsibilities to communicate with parents. We're just not allowed to do it in a way that we were allowed to do it last year.
Thanks, Matt.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
So I'm just wondering about the seating arrangement. So you have the seating arrangement for the kids in the class. What about the teacher and the parent? Do they have positions? Or would think it would be kind of free-floating and wouldn't really fall under, but.
They are free-floating, but what we would encourage a staff member to do is stay the 6 feet away. Right now, quarantines for ages 12 and up, so through adult, there are different rules. So you're advised to quarantine. And so if a staff member were to come in close contact with a student, they would be advised to quarantine, and if they weren't vaccinated and were exercising personal responsibility, they probably should quarantine. But if they were staying 6 feet away, they wouldn't have to.
So they're told, Bobby's, positive. Have you been?
that would be the ideal, yes. But keeping in mind that the county is the one who is letting us know about, potentially a high school student, and do the contact tracing from there. So that high school student would then have to say, yeah, I was in close contact with my teacher. We were, so, I mean, it gets really complicated in a hurry.
One of those complications is at the elementary level when you have adults working in really close proximity with a classroom of kids. And if that classroom is static and they don't change all day, it's highly likely that every kid is in close contact with that adult. So if that adult becomes sick and they do test positive, had this happen, that whole group of kids would be quarantined, but the adult would be, so the adult that tested positive is required to isolate. But the other adults in the room are not required, they're advised to quarantine. So now we have this challenge of, we have these close contact adults that have been in a room with kids, and all the kids are required to quarantine. And we know we have a confirmed positive with the adult. One of the adults is in isolation. What do you do with those other adults that likely should be on a quarantine, but they're only advised? Do you put them back in another classroom with other kids? Or do you find other staffing assignments for them? And we cannot discriminate based on vaccination status. And so you have unvaccinated adults that are close contact with a confirmed case. And so we've been working through it one scenario at a time and trying to just think of every situation as fairly as possible and doing our best to protect kids. And so at the end of the day, these are other people's kids we're responsible for during the day, and so we're doing our best to protect those kids and communicate openly and honestly and being as transparent with our parents as possible what's actually going on in our classes.
Yeah.
Can you just give us the definition of, like, that kind of gets.
Close contact is being within 6 feet of someone else for more than 15 minutes in an enclosed space. So, like I said, we'll be reporting all the data similar to what we did last year. We'll look at the county trend line, and then we'll also put in a school district trend line so that you'll be able to see that. But 10 minutes ago, I got the daily report. We had 130 new cases today, 105 new cases on Monday, and our positivity rate is 19.7%. So we're pushing 20% positivity rate for those who are tested. I noticed that the rate of tests dropped from last week to this week. So we had about 2,600 tests administered this week, and we had around 3,300 that were administered last week. I'm going to talk about testing when I talk about the ELC reopening grant. Some of the other things that are coming up and that we're certainly, aside from quarantines and isolations and positive cases and all of that, is masks. It hasn't been a predominant conversation from community members to me. I've certainly had some conversations with staff who are asking, urging me or the board to make some sort of recommendation to require them. And then just, case-by-case situations too. So, for example, we're going to host the college fair here at Flathead High School. We'll have about 70 colleges represented. We bring kids in from all over the county, from other high school districts into Flathead High School, and we are going to be in the gym, but you could potentially have 1,200 kids show up for this event, and they kind of come in shifts, but there's always constantly people there. and, a request to require masks for large events, if they're indoors. I balance a request like that with, we're gonna have a pep assembly, in the gym with 1,500 kids and no mask. So at what point do we say this is when we're going to and this is when we're not? But I think that's a conversation for the board to have. I'm not bringing forward a recommendation at this time, but I think it's certainly, it could warrant some discussion.
Okay.
Or I can answer questions.
I don't always have a question.
No,
Yes, I do. So for these, we've heard that there's been some sports contests occurring. Are these with other schools in other parts of the state, or are these school contests? I mean, to me, part of the conversation is about, moving around, that, I'm less concerned about the pep assembly with the kids who are already in school together every day than with, groups intermingling from other areas of the state. So we are doing that too at this moment.
Yep.
Like I've seen, Montana School Board Association puts out some nice daily dispatches, and I saw I was at Great Falls High School remote for 2 weeks.
Yep.
But they are continuing activities. Can you kind of jog my memory? I do believe that we said that if we have to close high school, we will not be doing activities.
Yeah, I just, I know activities are important for our communities, and, I wouldn't want, a state music festival or, a football game or a soccer contest or whatever it is, to be canceled. But I think, there's a little bit of irony to closing down a school for education, but then continuing to do activities where you could potentially, if the idea of closing a school down is to kind of hit the reset button, we're going to disinfect, we're going to try and separate kids for a while, we're going to try and get this back under control, but then we're going to say, 66% of our kids are in an activity, and we're just going to let them continue to do that. That there's just an irony to that I can't wrap my head around. I think if schools ended up closing, and we weren't doing activities, I am going to hear about it.
So, 9 days, have we had to close the classroom?
We have had to quarantine a classroom, 2? Just one.
So far, one.
Yep.
Elementary.
Yep.
Question about that classroom, were they able to continue remote?
Yes, to a certain degree. It was a life skills classroom.
We're talking numbers, Steve. How many children have been?
I don't have anything recent from the county on that. I know there have been a few. I don't know if they've been any of our school district students. But to go with that, though, I mean, I'm really nervous about where we could be headed. And it's not just Great Falls High, it's Eureka, it's Plains, it's Thompson Falls, it's, so Great Falls High closed down after 35 active cases. And if I'm talking to Joe Russell and I say, so what's an outbreak? What percentage of the kids would have to, or kids and staff would have to be, currently active to warrant, a recommendation to close a school? I'm nervous about that. I'm also nervous that people aren't getting tested, and I'm nervous about, we talk about personal responsibility, and then we have people who just flat out don't accept any personal responsibility. But we're 35 total cases for students right now, 12 for staff. We're not on the verge of closing down because of that. But I know we already have building principals who, because of a shortage of substitutes, who are already subbing in classrooms. And that is not going to be sustainable, for the long haul. And so there's a part of me that worries that it's underreported, that there's more spread than we can acknowledge in any kind of numbers. And so I don't want to paint a picture of, oh, everything's great. But it's not dire, at this point. So I'm still hopefully optimistic, that we won't close schools down, but I think our community and parents need to be aware of that potential. I have an email ready to go out, at the end of this week where I'll talk about, where we're posting the data and what that data is. Reminding people to be vigilant, in their own practices, encouraging that personal responsibility, but also, identifying that, similar to the board presentation that I gave last week, that there's going to be the potential for reduced services. I think we already experienced that with activities and transportation with just a shortage of bus drivers. So if they get sick, parents are, either you cancel the activity or you transport them yourself. There's just things that our community and our schools have provided for a long time without interruption, that it's just going to be reduced.
So when you're worrying about this, we're not going to see a scenario where the entire district shuts down, like one. Or how do you think about that?
Well, when I worry about this, it's between the hours of 12 a.m. and 4 a.m. and then I get up. Yeah, I mean, I think.
It seems like it's just going to be one building.
Or a classroom, or a grade level, or, I don't think we were just gonna go into wholesale, let's just shut the district down
Right.
because of an outbreak at, one of the schools.
So it could be, did we do that last year with like seventh?
We never did. There was
Who did seventh grade?
there was a,
KMS,
yeah, they had, a lot of kids out in quarantine and, positive cases. They got hit pretty hard there for a while, where they had over 30% of the seventh grade class was out. We did not close, we need to press on, but yeah.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Not necessarily the hospitalization piece, but it is the staffing piece, that makes me, similar. We had, I think it was last week, we had 20 sick. One was over COVID. The other ones were over the fact. So I'm thinking of, not because of COVID sweeping through, staffing shortage, so don't have the sub-staff, or may be closing. Today is Tuesday. It's normally a pretty average. Days are very high. Out today, what we were of those. Start to see that as
so it's actually kind of our adults that work.
well, from my standpoint, I'm trying to figure out how, everybody's got a different viewpoint. My viewpoint is, I'm worried we don't have enough stuff. And when you're out for a 2-week quarantine, out because you're sick, that's 2 weeks worth of stuff in addition to just absences.
So are you saying that our sub pool this year is less than our sub?
No, yes, and that's interesting. People always say that they're gonna come back and stuff, but then
That's necessarily.
We are getting probably about, at the, for every 2 weeks, orientations every 2 weeks. Everything we can. We're losing our subpool. Other economic factors. That would be just one thing.
Lance, did you have a question? Comment?
More of a comment, you know, and I would just, you know, continue to share concerns that people kind of get sick in our schools. I mean, but, and just look at the numbers. We are kind of where we were, you know, number-wise, late October last year, and it can get worse. But I still don't see people wearing masks. We're doing preventive care. And I think that's one of the rationales that we opened up the school year. Masks strongly recommended. I'm not sure what it will take for our community to step up and realize that we're still in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know if it has to be the inconvenience of closing the school. Someone well-known getting ill and dying. I don't know, but it's concerning that we're in this position, that we will continue moving forward when this might not be the best practice, but it's where our community wants at this point. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you for, you know, expressing those concerns. I know you all got my email, and one of the things I'm concerned about is it is our responsibility to listen to our community. And I know we have all gotten the messages, you know, on all sides. It's a tough thing to listen to, you know, opinions that you don't agree with, but that is our role. We have to do that. And we have to discern what this community wants in our schools. And we have a lot of options right now and a lot of information available to us. I just want to remind you all that we have learned a lot this last year. We have become better trustees this year, and we have to trust our judgment in this. We get great information from a lot of different sources. And I think it's important that we honor, you know, everybody's opinion in this community, and that's why I wanted you guys to think about, you know, some of the decisions we have to make. Do we want to have a special meeting to really discuss our options, including masks? You know, we can't do it tonight, but I wanted us to start the conversation, and thank you for leading us here, Micah. But we have a lot of people we have to think about, you know, students, staff, community. So some of the things I would like to think about right now, and I want you to think about and let me know how you feel. And this is the perfect evening for it. Do you think we need a special meeting, open meeting, to discuss some of these options? Closing one classroom if possible, you know, requiring masks, 6th grade and younger. Lots of different options. Do you think we need to go that route? Jack?
One option there is to recognize that you as the chair can call a special meeting by yourself, and any 2 trustees can ask for a special meeting to discuss something. So even if we don't express position tonight as a group, those 2 avenues are always there for any kind of a special meeting.
Right.
That's something.
So if we have a special meeting, discuss something, does it always have to have a public comment period?
And that's why we can't make any decisions tonight, because we didn't notice this was gonna be
It wasn't on our agenda.
Right.
We would publish an agenda. And then,
go ahead, Jack.
Now, if the agenda was for discussion, there'd be a public comment, general public comment. If there was an action to be taken, then you'd have a general public comment and a public comment for that action item. So just because we get together to discuss it without an action, if we wanted to understand things better, there wouldn't necessarily be any public comment for it, there'd just be a general public comment. Public comment is pretty much limited to when we take action on something.
We can talk about this right now. Any other thoughts? I mean, I'm not hearing the real need right now to step into.
When I go to the supermarket, I still see 1% of people wearing a mask.
Hey, I wear one there too.
My kids, so, you know, I know my own kid went to school, you know, feels like we should wear a mask, got there, no one's wearing a mask, and just like, I feel awkward. Okay. Are there kids wearing masks, even though it's strongly recommended by the Board of Trustees?
And
I understand too that masks don't prevent it, but it sure increases the odds that we're not gonna pass it.
yeah, I mean, I, you know, just from you know, the analogy that is used in terms of mitigation strategies is Swiss cheese, right? There's always holes, doesn't matter what it is, but the more layers of Swiss cheese you have in front of you, the harder it is for something to pass through. So whether you're washing your hands, washing your distance, wearing a mask, you know, getting vaccinated, whatever that may be, it certainly adds to it. But my impression, you know, just being in the schools early on, is that there is not a lot of mask wearing. I'm going to say 1% would be a lot.
Lance, I was at Flathead this week, and I saw one teacher wearing masks, and a couple. Here at Flathead, it was about this. I was also here for parent-teacher night. None of the teachers I encountered had masks on that I saw, so pretty.
Can I add on to your, when I was on a parent-teacher night where I did show up in a mask, is every single teacher did have a mask in their desk drawer. And the moment I walked in with a mask, they asked, should I put it on, or they just immediately put it on. So, yeah, so they do have them, and they are, I think they do adjust to what's going on around them.
Is there any information that you feel you would need for you to make these decisions better? I mean, I know you all give us lots of information. I'm very confident in the information we have right now, but I know things have come up at other meetings. Anybody interested in anything?
This is Ursula. I have a question.
Okay,
Can
go
you all
ahead,
hear-
Ursula.
So one of the things that I keep on wondering is what our options are. I mean, I hear a lot, our hands are tied. I know we've talked about some of the legal things. And so there's a part of me that wonders, regardless of what, you know, we may be considering, what really are our options at this point? That's something that's not totally clear to me.
Options for masks? That's the
Masks,
question.
yeah, masks, contact tracing. You know, I think we all heard about there's the vaccine mandate. I don't know what's happening with any of that. It feels like there's so much happening in like the greater state and country that it's hard to know what our role really is.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to vaccines or, quarantines, isolations, anything like that, we are just following the laws. We are doing everything that we legally can do, from a mitigation standpoint and to protect, students and staff, with the exception of masking. That is one layer that doesn't exist. Options when it comes to masking, that is a local control issue, and the board can make a decision in a variety of ways. I would just say that the more parts and pieces to any kind of mask requirement, the more difficult it is to enforce. For example, if you said we're only going to mask at large indoor gathering events, we have to determine what is large, and then we have to be able to enforce it. Would it only be for students? Would it be for adults? Would it be for, whatever? So, like in a lot of districts where you see a mask requirement, they're either requiring it K-12 and any visitors. It could be K-6, it could be K-8, it could be staff only, it could be any number of things. But that would be what the board would have to discuss and decide. I would just say that the more complicated it is, the harder it is to enforce.
I have a question. I think parents, community members would love to know more numbers of kids, wanting to know how many kids have it.
We will be getting that out soon.
Of course.
Drew, were you waiting on it?
Yeah, I was gonna respond to Sue's question, if there, but I don't really feel like there is already a super complex issue. And, about all the TV shows, the characters are. We've never been in that situation because we just go to the store and pick up 3 apples or 4 apples, That one of those situations. And there's no sure path. It was a lot easier last year when people couldn't get vaccinated. And mask wearing, we knew was going to make a difference in that. This year, we're surrounded by people who are vulnerable and people who aren't vulnerable, and you can't tell who they are because their skin color. And all we know is that we've got these little guys who are vulnerable. We also know that they aren't as vulnerable in terms of how sick. But you would feel so bad. So I guess that's just kind of where I am. I can't put my head on something like, yes, we should mask K through 6. I think that if I could do that, that's what I would do. But Mike is absolutely right that there would be all these conflicting, who's gonna monitor that? Think about our children, and most of them want to step up. We present this to the children as you're doing something for your grandma and your grandpa, your mom and your dad, they'll put those masks on. Unless they're getting conflicting information at home, and then they're tortured, and then you've got these, you know, babies that are tortured. If you decide to have a mask mandate. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. Very, you know, what kind of turmoil is kind of rumbling around in here as we try to decide what our decision will be.
Thanks, Will.
You can call me at 2 a.m. when you're thinking about it.
I sleep pretty good.
Jack?
So, Will, you referred to last year, and Mike Callie and Bill guided us through last year because of their studious aspects of all the different angles and nuances that exist. And I think that Mike Callie and Matt are doing the same thing this year, and it's been exemplified in some of their explanations of the examples they have to face. And I think that their presentations have been extremely informative, very insightful, and for that reason, I don't know that I feel there's any more information that needs to be provided, because they're trying to understand the current nature of everything, because the current nature of everything changes every day, almost. They only change every other day, or maybe once a week, but there's two key words I think that need to stay with us, and that is we've got to remain fluid. And the other one is an aspect of Mother Nature that always exists, but we don't want to recognize, is that it's always in a dynamic state of flux. And with that, why, as human beings who we're supposed to be intelligent, why can't we practice that dynamic state of flux?
Thanks, Jack. So what I'm hearing from people is don't need too much more information other than discussing different options. Don't see a need for a special meeting at this point in time. Are very confident in the information that we're getting and the path we're going down right now. But yeah, we're nervous. And I think we all need to keep that in the back of our mind, that we are nervous. And at some point, we may need to call a special meeting. But I think it's important that the public knows we're having these discussions. And we are honoring, all opinions. So thank you for having that discussion. Am I on track with my thinking? Okay.
I do have a few other comments.
And this is
Ursula, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I agree with everything you say, with everything as far as like the reading on the room, and I'm not there to read the room as well, but that potentially we need a special meeting in the future. My feeling is that we might need that meeting very soon. It does seem like what we're doing is not necessarily working, and I would be prepared to have a special meeting on that sooner or later. So just putting that out there.
Thanks, Ursula. Rebecca?
On the information we need, the information presented last board meeting by Micah was truly exceptional and beautifully laid out graphics, very easy to understand. I know that that's a lot of work, so I don't expect it every hour, but that was really very helpful. First things first, to me it's very clear, going back to phase 2 is preferable to closing a school. That to me is an obvious, I think most people would agree with, that, masks are preferable to going remote. It's nerve-wracking to not wait till it's too late. And it's also nerve-wracking to go too early. And so my feeling is that we made the decision to open up in phase 3. And we all know that there's a lag, that it takes, 4 days for an infection to spread, 2 or 3 days to get the test results back, that there's almost a 2-week lag between a case and seeing if it's being spread in the schools and seeing what's happened. So I do actually feel that we made this experiment. We're opening in phase 3, and we almost need at least another few weeks, at least in 1 more week to kind of see if that is having a ripple effect or not. And we can call a special meeting with 48 hours notice. And I am certainly prepared for that eventuality, that we may need to have a rapid meeting saying we're seeing considerable spread in our schools, or that we think might be related to our schools, or we're getting to the amount of staffing issues where we might have to close, or, we're getting to those points. But except for the fact that I do feel stay the course at the moment, let's give it a little time and see when we can actually see that, when the numbers have meaning. I kind of feel right what I felt in the August meeting. The 2 things I need are to have a metric designed by the board, or perhaps suggested by Callie or Micah or Matt, of when we pull that plug, or if we need to pull that plug on move to phase 2, like saying, if we see 2 weeks rises and 150 people have, or, whatever the metric is, having a metric like, at this point, start to think, or at this point, it triggers it. Numbers comfort me. And I would find that, to be helpful to hash out that sort of where we are at what we consider high. And the other thing is the K through 8s. It's hopefully only another 3 months before any of those who choose to be vaccinated can be vaccinated. And to hold school with students we know have not had the option to be vaccinated without as many precautions as we can does weigh heavily on me. And especially the email that we all got about the student, the kindergarten student, I think, who said that they did feel they had contracted COVID in the classroom. I feel that responsibility. Listening to the community is part of our responsibility. Protecting our students is also a part of our responsibility. I don't know if I said anything, but that's where I'm at.
Jack?
So we're talking about the need for a special meeting, but remember, we meet almost every 2 weeks anyways. So I don't know that we would necessarily need a special meeting, because I don't know that making a decision 1 week before another meeting will really accelerate things. That's just a thought, that we can still call a special meeting. But I think the nuances, to create metrics might, depends on what level you want to make the metrics at, because we've got examples of grade classrooms, grade levels, schools, for the whole district. And I don't know that you want to make a whole district decision unless there's something really necessary, because to varying degrees that may look retaliatory against certain groups of people that either want to make sure you're masked or not want to make sure you're masked. So to me, the attention that Micah, Callie, and Matt are giving to classroom, grade level, school, is the most appropriate. So I don't know that you could get a blanket metric across the school district, because they may already have some things in mind or metrics set for classroom, grade level, school already, as opposed to a metric for the district. So the metric can change based on school building too. So I think that those are things that I don't know that we can create an average for a one number metric to trigger something. Those are just my thoughts.
I at the very least would think 50% over hospital capacity in our county would mean I would have a very hard time imagining that schools should be meeting in person. And at that point, anything we're adding to community spread would be unsustainable.
Got a couple more comments, and then,
Yeah,
because it seems like most people are okay with staying the course right now, but be ready to punt at short notice. But, and we have a couple other things left on the agenda, so a couple more comments, and then let's move on. Heather, you had your
Yeah,
light.
I'm just here trying to wrap my brain how I don't know how we go back to face after watching these kids appear tonight and so excited, things that's driving them right now. After what we all went through this week, driving them, they are so excited about all the activities, the sporting events, the parade. Go back to phase 2, we lose. I cannot wrap my brain around doing that to these kids. Heard it right there in their voices. And easy little things all missed out on last year. Everybody missed out on. They are thrilled to have that. Numbers were cases. Doesn't have a single case. It is great. Let's be positive. Let's keep moving in that direction. And there are some classes I watched at the elementary school. One kid in that class. I don't know how you social distance a kindergarten class and a kindergarten teacher who's bubbling around. We did the whole class tour, checking on what is teacher space, what is my space. We were all together, one student, so I can see outbreak pockets like that. We will have those. We also have to keep in mind that before COVID, we had all these little outbreaks every single year. I send my kids to school, within the first 2 to 3 somebody is sick. Always, same drill. We have to keep that in mind too. And yeah, there's not always going to be testing for everybody, and there are a lot of people with concerns. Student comes home sick, they want to know, what am I dealing with? Am I dealing with cold? Am I dealing with COVID? I mean, the ones that can be tested, and hopefully they're able to get a test. It isn't COVID. That's just me.
Thanks, Heather. Will, did you have another comment?
I'm okay.
Okay,
Ready to move on?
let's move on.
I think you all brought up some great points, and I would stress that there are a lot of positive things happening in Kalispell schools, and we can't forget to celebrate those things and be excited about them. Teachers are doing amazing things, kids are doing amazing things. People are generally happy. So I just want to keep that at the forefront as well. Also under this item, policy 1910, which is an emergency policy under COVID, the 1900 series. 1910 spoke specifically originally to FFCRA leave, which was Families First Coronavirus Relief Act leave. That expired in on December 30th of 2020. Yep. And then the district extended that leave benefit. We put a few more strings around it and tightened it up a little bit. But it is my recommendation that the board approve 1910 again. The caveat is that it is limited to 80 hours of leave for the year. you know, we're already experiencing breakthrough cases with staff. We're experiencing parents who are having to, you know, go home because their child is quarantined. We're just continuing to experience that, and at a minimum, I feel like this is an appropriate thing to do. And so I'm asking the board to approve. And Kelly, can you pull up the actual 1910? There it is.
There it is.
Oh, sorry. So most of the top of this is exactly as we had it written from the very beginning. And if you scroll down just a little bit, it's right down at the bottom. Up just a little bit more. Bottom of that page, right there. The employee will receive up to a total of 80 hours for use during the 21-22 school year at the regular rate of pay for quarantine or isolation due to a verified close contact and or positive COVID test. I think included in that statement is the ability to use that 80 hours to care for someone else, be it a child or a sick parent or something.
Thoughts, and I look in the third paragraph above that. Last sentence, proper documentation must be provided to determine eligibility, including proof of a positive COVID test. But in the bottom paragraph, you talk about close contact. Does the wording need to be changed in either one of those because they seem a little bit conflicting?
No. So, and we did this last year. So staff members, if they test positive or they were identified as close contact and were required to quarantine, you do get documentation of your test. They submit that online, or if it's a close contact order from the health department, they can submit that as well.
So then does the phrase close contact from the health department need to be entered in there somewhere? As the phrase, as the...
Where it says verified. So it talks about a verified close contact. It comes to our office, it just says, that we're trying to see if.
So verified implies the involvement of the health department?
Correct.
Yes.
They're the only ones that can verify.
And what money will be used to fund this?
We had money set aside, additional dollars were budgeted in the ESSER funds under substitutes. And, you know, so that's really the upfront cost is paying for a substitute if we can find them. And then the other part of it would be comp time. And then, you know, from a pragmatic standpoint, when you think about leave, and I'll just use teachers as an example because I know that contract a little bit better, but teachers can carry 175 days into retirement, into severance. And so the long-term financial piece is going to be at that point of severance with that employee.
Oh, but we're providing 80 hours of funding, so or do we have for the substitutes and this 80 hours in order to protect at least 80 hours of personal leave is what this is doing, if I'm hearing
sick leave.
Of sick leave. Do we have $500,000 or $700,000 of ESSER that's set aside to address this?
Well, we budget for substitutes every year, and I can't remember what the total amount is for the district, but it's a pretty significant sum. And then we also budgeted another $100,000, which was part of that's to cover sub bonuses and those kind of things. But
so we don't know. So it's a hard guess as to how much obviously it's a hard guess to know how much we will need. I was just curious how much we have set aside to cover it.
Yeah, and I know I saw something recently that there is an option to get a reimbursement. I don't know if you saw it or not, Glenn, but there's another reimbursement option, under ARP funding, right, that we can tap into.
$10,000. And that reimbursement is after the 30th of this year. Fair share of one that was on, that used in April or September. And I haven't looked at the numbers, but we will look at that. That it was, but it depends on, I think, lots of cases, we had people mow and that sort of thing. And April to September, we're closed July and August, so I don't know, and I don't, yeah, we definitely will take a look at it. That's last April to this September.
Yeah, that's just in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So that's just that's just in a couple of weeks, and you said it's 100,000, so we still have that, that's the net balance that's left?
No, we budgeted $100,000 for, in answer to, for subs. That reimbursement from the federal government is from last April till the end of, it passed the end of September. We'll take a look at how many people used, yep. And then we'll, see if there's, merit into attempting to claim that reimbursement.
And then you also use the word tax credit. How would a tax credit help a nonprofit?
It actually is a tax credit against your Social Security. Highest share of the Social Security. We would get a credit, and the next time we file a 941, we would use credit to pay our Social Security.
Okay.
And this first started a year and a half ago. The tax credit was only for private agencies. Allowance really for us. But there was something for schools that said you could postpone the payment for federal taxes, from March until the following December, and we were like, no. I mean, we're gonna pay it in December, let's just pay it, get it over with. We're not stockpiling it, trying to figure out if all of our numbers are right, and we just were not, there's really no benefit other than having to use of your money, which
Thank you. All the different ways that the government debt's gonna be increased.
exactly.
The other things that I want to point out about, this is putting it in policy, puts it in place for every employee rather than trying to come up with an MOU for each individual union. And then we also have quite a few employees who are not covered under a union, or any kind of collective bargaining agreement. So that's why I put it in there, as a policy.
I'm glad we can do this, and I'd move to adopt the modification of policy 1910 as presented.
Thank you, Lance. Is there a second? Thank you, Kim. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ursula?
Aye.
Thank you. It has been approved unanimously. Next on the
I move to
agenda,
approve the consent agenda.
no, we're not there
No,
yet.
I gotta talk about the, sorry,
Yeah.
Jack.
I know. Save that thought.
I'll try and get through this next part fast. The ELC reopening grant is really around testing, for COVID. And the State Department of Public Health and Human Services, through the governor's office, he allocated $37 million for testing for, public and private schools. So contained in that $37 million are the tests, which are free to the district. I received 6,000 rapid tests today, which can be used for symptomatic COVID screening. One of the challenges with that is you don't necessarily want sick kids, Johnny wakes up in the morning, I'm not feeling good, mom brings him to school to get tested. So there's a challenge right there. Then this grant, is actually, all school districts were given, depending on the number of FTE you have in your district. If you have fewer than 25 FTE, you get $35,000. If you have more than 25 FTE, you get $45,000. For a district our size, that is a drop in the bucket, because it requires personnel who are trained, who will do the reporting to the county, who will do all of these things. So another component to receiving the grant funds is that you are making it COVID screening available. So anybody who is an employee of the district can sign up and you can have a PCR test done once a week. You administer it yourselves. It's an AN, anterior nasal swab. You put it in a test tube and FedEx comes and picks it up, takes it to a lab, and in 48 hours, you get notification of your test results. So just another mitigation strategy. So I'm laying awake thinking, how are we going to do this, and with what personnel and with limited funding to do that, and had an idea that if possible, if the school districts in Flathead County pooled their resources, we would be able to do a lot more with what little we have. And so reached out to all the area superintendents that, kind of floated the idea, like if we all pooled our resources, potentially we could address some of the challenges that are in front of us. I had 9 districts that are interested in doing that, and that got approval from the state to be able to do that. And the idea would be that we would set up testing sites outside of school that could potentially even be mobile. We have a couple of food trucks. I have talked with former educators who are currently, they've helped with vaccine clinics, they're helping with testing with the hospital. They said that they would be more than interested in doing this. And so just setting the groundwork for this to be able to happen. But I do have 6,000 rapid tests that we're going to start making available. We're protected under a CLIA waiver with the State Department of Health and Human Services. It's literally a 6-minute video. You hand someone a Q-tip, they swab their nose, they put it in a package, you drop 6 droplets of not antigen, reagent, something. Anyway, 6 droplets, 15 minutes later, you know. We've been using these tests. We got them last year. We made them available for all staff and dependents through our Care Here clinic. And so we're just working on a process to make this available valley-wide. And we're leading the charge and have agreed to be the fiscal host and to do the hiring and to do whatever we can to facilitate this.
And I love thinking outside the box, thinking of ways to make it possible, so nicely done. Consent agenda.
Wait, can I ask a question on that first? Yes. Private schools or just public schools? You said 9 superintendents, but have you thought about, would it be interesting to work with, I don't know, some of the Montessori, some of the, I don't even know what schools are.
Yeah, the Montessori person is part of our group, and in some districts, they'll probably figure out how to do it on their own, if they want to even do it at all. But to have the funds allocated, you have to provide the screening test, which is also code for surveillance testing. I just don't want to use the word surveillance.
So the 9 are
It just
mostly.
raises eyebrows.
Right.
But seriously, like, I could sign up and I could swab my nose once a week, put it in the test tube, mail it off, and I can have my results in 48 hours.
But the 9 are, that you want to partner with, are public schools?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Move approval of consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Wait, what about board discussion?
Thank God. No. Moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ursula?
Aye.
Thank you. It has been, the consent agenda has been approved. Informational items and reports. Trustee reports, I am going to start off. I'm going to remind you that Kalispell Education Foundation has challenged us to get 100% board participation in their donations. And I forget what the date is when it ends.
I don't know, I just know the administrative team is winning. So.
I know. So, come on, guys. I also wanted to mention that I'm pretty excited. I know that doesn't take much, but I can't give you all the details, but it looks like we have plans for our strategic planning facilitation. And until it's all finalized, I'm not gonna even mention names or times, but we're gonna get this done by the end of January and
So it's gonna start this fall.
move on. It's gonna start this fall, yes. And that's all I'm gonna say. Jack, got anything?
No.
Rebecca, and you have the Gyro Award to give away too.
And you'll have to pry it out of me. I've been fortunate to be in the schools a couple different schools in the first weeks, and it looks like the students are happy, the teachers are happy. It looks like everyone's excited to be here, and it's exciting to see Flathead is doing a fall musical for the first time in many, many, many years. Callie probably knows how many. And it looks to be excellent. I just sat for a few minutes in the first rehearsal. So yeah, it looks like a new year starting well. So, you know, give me a job and I take it seriously. Even if you give me a silly job, I take it seriously. So I really started to think about my fellow board members. And the one thing is that I've really come to in my own head is just how much each and every one of us adds something, and how important each and every one of us is. That each of us has a skill set that the others don't have. And it's really, really great to be such a part of such a team. But it does make it hard to give out an award. But I have chosen Kim.
Quietest one here.
Why? Kim does not get the recognition she deserves. She is the person who came to the board meeting when she wasn't a member for many, many months, which very few people have done. And mostly just she is the eye of a hurricane. She reminds us all calm when it doesn't feel like calmness is what it's called for, but to not let it, if you're freaked out, it's not gonna help the world, and it's gonna only help when you're calm, so.
Oh, thank you very much. You should have came to the, personnel committee, that's when I get really emotional. Rebecca, thanks, that's extremely sweet, thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Just the truth, ma'am.
Lance?
Nothing.
Will?
Apropos of our earlier discussion, I just wanted to say that this staff is awesome. 100% behind whatever you do, because as Jack mentioned, fluid situation, decisions have to be made on them. Have complete trust.
Thank you, Will. Diane?
No. Ditto.
I like it. Heather? Scotty?
No.
Kim?
I think Bill said it all.
Okay, yep. Administrative reports.
Do I need to use this? Sure. First of all, I would just say, every chance I get, when I'm speaking publicly or privately with people, I acknowledge this board. Feel pretty fortunate, to be working with this group of people, and, can't say that enough. And, you deserve a pat on the back and, accolades, even when we don't always get them. So grateful for that. also grateful for, the team of administrators that I have, Callie and Matt. They make me look good. They work so hard behind the scenes, you know, just the whole central office team, Gwen and Tracy and Sarah, Rich, Greg, they're an amazing team and feel very fortunate for that. I do want to talk a little bit about the suicides and the things that are kind of shaping up right now. And, you know, it's hard. It's hard not to, I don't know, it's just hard. And I feel for the parents and our staff and students that are affected by these tragedies. And a lot of times we get, you know, the questions immediately are, you know, the schools should be doing more. What are the schools doing? And how can we help? And there's been an amazing outpouring of that from our community, and very grateful for that. And I want to assure the board that there is so much going on behind the scenes, and that the number of lives that are saved is untold. Our counselors and administrators and teachers, school psychs, everybody that's a part of this organization recognizes mental health and the challenges, and it's just really hard. I have been working with Casey Howard, who's the executive director of the Nate Sheep Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and we have collaborated, and we are bringing Dr. Scott Poland, who is probably the foremost expert in suicide prevention in the country, internationally recognized, has testified at Congress on 4 different occasions, has written the toolkit for Montana, for Florida, for Texas. This is a renowned person, and he is coming to our district on September 27th, 28th, and 29th. So he will be here for 3 days. He is going to work with different groups in different capacities. He will be here for our school board meeting, and I would like for him to speak with the board, you know, and whatever that message is, that will be his undertaking. But we also have an early release on Wednesday, that Wednesday, and I'm going to ask our middle school and high school staff to come together for a presentation with him. He'll do a more extended session with counselors and mental health therapists and school psychs. He'll work with student leadership groups. He is going to do a community presentation. Canvas Church has said that we can use their facility on that Monday. So there's just a lot going on to continue to address, you know, the number one most preventable cause of death for teenagers. And excited for it, but also excited for our community to be able to have a resource like him. And if there's anything that we can learn or glean, do better, we certainly want to do that. So just wanted the board to be aware of that. That's all I have.
Thanks, Micah. Kelly? Matt?
I've been having a lot of fun. Thank you for hiring me. This is a great job, and I love the people I work with. Been able to start meeting with principals. We've been meeting on site, all the different sites. Had a couple full team meetings. As much as like we got stuff right we have to deal with right now, we've been able to do some planning and talk, you know, big picture things that we want to do, and it's been exciting. Got the online program up and running. Gotta give a shout out to a couple people, Trustee Reports, Tim Anderson, they're instructional coaches. Christy's at Hedges and Tim's at Elrod, and they just helped get our new staff online going. And it's a lot, one of my teachers teaching first through fourth grade, you know, teaching fifth and sixth grade, so there's a lot of coaching goes on in teaching that group. And then, our long-line teachers are housed out of Elrod. So, Mr. Hornby has stepped up and he's their supervisor. Yeah, like one of them's in Minnesota, or in Michigan. So anyway, he's making it work, just great people to work with. And then, I want to give a, like, public praise to Micah for, he's downplayed it pretty big time in this meeting, but the rapid testing, that's a challenge for the Flying Valley. That's not a challenge for Kalispell Public Schools. And he picked that up, led it, came up with this really great creative idea, sold it to the area superintendents. It was an easy sell because nobody else knew what to do. And no one district could do that alone. And so if you get even $35,000 in a small rural school, that's not enough to pay for all of the stuff you need to do, and so they made that happen. And then, a month ago, I think we were meeting at Glacier High talking about, suicide and just how do we deal with this as a community. Just the humility of that conversation that we all had and stepping into that, looking for solutions, brought us to the current solution, which probably isn't the solution, but it's gonna be a big piece of it. So just thankful to be part of it.
Thank you, Matt. Please notice, any of your upcoming committee meetings. Those are the minutes right there. But I know we've got some things coming up next week. Pay attention to that. Good place to have conversations. Other than that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Right.
Thank you, Jack. Kind of slow on the uptake there.
I was looking around, nobody was moving.
I know, is there a second? Scotty seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Night, Ursula.
Thanks, Ursula.